Hello, everyone, and welcome to Author Spotlight, a brand new show on BPTV that will shine a light on a different local author each month. We're your co-hosts, Elaine Volpe
and Carolyn Lasik.
And we're excited to be talking today with Donna Anderson, author of the Lady Thistle the Horse picture book series. So joining us now is the author of the Lady Thistle picture book series, Donna Anderson Horball. So thank you again for joining us. We are so excited that you've come back to visit the library. You have been here before.
Having me, because
Absolutely.
This is very exciting for me as well.
Yes. You have been here, 3 times before, I think, reading your book, sharing your illustrations.
Yes.
Sharing your story behind the story with our young audience.
Right.
And they just love the books. They're always so engaged. And they also love the craft that you provide. So I know that's one of your favorite things about the book is getting to share it with young audiences. Besides here at this library, have you done that anywhere else in the community?
Oh, yes. I do readings at schools.
Okay.
To kindergarten through some schools through 3rd grade. And then sometimes the schools have evening programs regarding, building, reading interest and themes.
Sure.
And I've read for groups of children there.
And I think that's an interesting point. You say kindergarten to 3rd grade, but I feel like, and I think you probably share in this sentiment, Carolyn, that picture books can be loved by all ages, right? I have a passion for picture books. I love chapter books. I love young adult literature, but I really have a passion for picture books. And I always tell everyone that you're never too old for a picture book. I feel like they think that you grow out of it. Like if you get to a certain grade, you shouldn't be reading picture books anymore. You should only be reading chapter books. And that is so not the case.
That's right.
So really, your main audience has been K through 3.
Well,
but I feel like, as an adult, I love these books and I've learned so much. So I feel like they're really appropriate for any age. And then kind of having said that I've learned from it, there is like an educational component to your stories.
Very much so.
Did you do that intentionally?
Yes.
Or did that kind of just happen
No.
by
That
accident?
was very intentional. My daughter is a veterinarian. She's an equine specialist, and not only that, but she's a boarded surgeon.
Okay.
And that's a pretty credentialed part of the equine veterinarian community. So she's my fact checker and she's my contributor. So each time when I'm picking the topic for the book that I'm writing, and by the way, the books follow the life of from the birth of Lady Thistle, the horse.
Right.
She checks what I'm writing and inputs right from the start.
And that is so very important as well.
Yes.
Anytime you are publishing any sort of book for any age level, I think doing your research is essential. Right, so having someone in your own family, that's very convenient and helpful, but all authors have to do that, right? I think that's just so very important that you are researching your facts and you have somebody who is checking for that.
Yes,
So that's wonderful.
And because there can be a lot of misinformation out there about, and we'll say specific to horses, even owners of horses. And we want children to have good, solid information right from the start if they have an interest in being around horses. And so their stories, they're fictional books based on the true story of Lady Thistle, but threaded through the story is this information. And then at the end of the book, there's a couple of pages of did you knows.
Right.
And it takes components of the story and expands upon it from an educational perspective.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So they are really engaged in the story and they are curious about finding out more. You have those fun facts in the back of the book that kind of further explain things.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think one of the things when you do your readings here anyway, one of the things that the kids are most enthralled with is the birthing process.
Yes.
Right? When Lady
That's
Thistle
the first
gives
book.
birth.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about the first book and then maybe we could there's 5 in all, right?
So far,
So we can kind of take a little journey, but let's start with the first book and the story behind that.
Okay. I was headed down a path of writing something, and I didn't know if it was going to be books or articles, but on not related to horses, on more an adult level.
Oh, okay.
And then my daughter finished up all of her training and came home. She actually did a 3-year surgical residency in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Wow.
And that's what prepared her for her boarding. And when she arrived home from that, we had a thoroughbred racehorse that we were part owners of, and we decided it was time for her to retire and come home to our farm. And she came home with, she was going to have a foal, a baby horse. And so when she arrived at the farm, and after 30 years of doing, riding and horse-associated things with my daughter, I had never seen the birth of a foal, and I had never seen a young foal with their mom. So watching the birth, which is what this first story is about, it's the mom's name is Polly, and it's about, her coming to the farm, meeting all of the other animals, but they know something's happening, they know something's different, and at the end of the story, of course, they have a little foal in the barn, and her name is Lady Thistle. So
I misspoke.
That's
right. So Polly is the mom. Lady Thistle is the
foal, the baby.
That is born. Yes.
So the book series is actually about Lady Thistle. When this all happened, I just started writing the stories, and I knew where I was going with this.
It's wonderful.
Yeah,
it's a
that was the
wonderful
inspiration,
series, and each of them are so very engaging. So this one talks about the birth of Lady Thistle.
Yes.
From there, where do we go in the series?
Okay, so the next book then is Thistle's actually first day. And this book, believe it or not, there's a story, an important story, just in the first 24 hours of the foal's life, and that is that they have to get up on those long, wobbly legs of theirs, and they have to drink their mother's milk within even an hour of their birth. And I learned a lot through writing these books from my daughter because, we had to talk about each of the topics, but the reason, I always knew that was important, but the reason behind it is that their digestive tract changes that fast after birth that if they don't drink the mother's milk right away, they lose a lot of the absorption capabilities for the antibodies and the nutrients.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's, the first day.
Wow.
Okay.
I always see them on TV on programs when a baby's being born, and you see them wobbling up rather quickly.
Oh, yes.
Does it really go that quick?
Oh, yeah, right away. Because in the wild, when horses lived in the wild, they were prey. And so the mom can actually, to a certain degree, choose when she's going to give birth.
Really?
So we knew Polly was ready actually a couple of days before it happened, and she was choosing when
we could do that. Huh?
I know, and believe it or not, it's really fast.
Wow,
it's
That's
very fast.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if they sense danger, then that's the
then,
reason.
well, the babies have to be able to get up and be able
flee.
to run.
Wow.
Be able to get away. Not anymore because they're very protected.
But they still have that.
But still, it's the
instinct.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
I love that. Okay, so the birth, and then her first
day. So the third book then is that Thistle starts exploring. And what happened in this book is that she was she was only a few days old, but it was time for her to go out to pasture and let her mom go out to pasture as well. And foals are very, very attached to the mother, and they cannot have the halter and the lead rope around their neck because it's still very delicate because they're so young. So they're supposed to follow the mother out to the field. Well, that happened pretty well like the first and second day, and then Thistle decided it was time to explore. So one day on the way to the field, she decided she wasn't going to stay with her mother, which is really unusual.
Oh, wow.
And
she
didn't go
adventurous
far.
Sense about her.
But she went to visit the other horses in their, along their fence lines. And so what we did then, and it begins, what will become more important later on, we called our trainer, and he came by and he showed us with Thistle how to wrap her with a lead rope and kind of keep her under control on her way out to the field. So these are all real characters, all real people, and real animals in the stories.
So are the characters really look like the people?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the illustrator had lots of photographs of everyone that for the books. And sometimes he had to ask for certain poses or certain, like in one of the books with the next book coming out, all the pictures I sent him of the main character in the 5th book were face on, and he said, I need to see a profile. So we worked pretty, closely and pretty intensely to illustrate the books.
A lot of work.
That's great. Book number 4, Thistle experiences an injury. What happens when a horse gets injured? How is that horse cared for and, rehabilitated, if you will?
Right.
Just that whole process, I think, is very interesting to children. And again, adults, people of all ages.
Like I say in the 3rd book, Thistle got into a little bit of trouble, but in the 4th book, when she was just 7 weeks old, she came out of the field with a large cut on her lower leg. It would be kind of, if we thought of it this way, be kind of between our knee and our ankle.
Okay.
And of course, I called my daughter right away, and she ended up putting 34 stitches in this, this very young little leg.
And do we know how she got the cut, or was she just?
Well, in the story, I described, we figured it out finally. But we looked everywhere. We watch our fields pretty closely for broken fences, for sharp edges, for, stuff blows in to the fields that, horses are very curious and they get into trouble. What we finally found was there was a 4-inch white PVC drain pipe in the field, and a mower had cut the top off of it. And we figured the larger horses, their foot didn't go in to the hole, but her little leg did, and then she cut it probably on the sharp edge, pulling it out. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so like my daughter always says, if there's trouble, horses will get into it.
They'll find it.
They will find it, right.
So Dr. April stitches her up then, 34 stitches.
Yes.
And then how long?
The book also explains, how she had to be sedated, but she had to be standing up to have that treatment. So it's a very delicate balance with veterinarians when they work on horses, because they have to make them sleepy but not lay down.
Right.
And then each day the bandage had to be taken off and cleaned and reapplied.
And did you have to learn how to do that, or was your daughter, did she come every day to do that?
No, she came every day to do that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I laugh because I always say, I'm glad I didn't have the vet bills on that one.
Right? That would have been a hefty one. So, and now you are currently working on your 5th book.
The fifth book is actually ready. It's at the printer now. And the next important step in Thistle's life was that her feet began to be taken care of. Horses' feet are an extremely important part of their health, as are their teeth, actually. It's surprising,
Yeah.
And so we have a man who comes every 6 weeks and takes care of our horses' feet. And he's called a farrier. Some people would refer to them as a blacksmith, but they're not a blacksmith. They are, because blacksmiths work with metal and hot metals and reshaping and so forth, but do not work with horses.
Okay.
So the proper term is a farrier, and my farrier, I think, is more excited about this book than I am. He's pretty much the main character. And Thistle had to experience having him check and trim her feet for the first time when I think she was about 3 months old when that occurred. And so the book is about, Thistle was like scared of a lot of things about that horses do as they're growing up, and how she had to overcome her fear. And
I love that. And that message can be so relatable to children, right? Facing our fears, overcoming our worries and our fears and our anxieties.
Exactly.
So this book,
even in
number
the
5 specifically, I feel like they all have a component where they can teach a lesson or children can relate to them, but it sounds like book number 5 especially.
address
has a very important message.
Yeah. And in the fourth book, Thistle had to learn to trust the people around the farm to help her and her veterinarian. Like children have to let their doctors help them get better when something happens.
Yeah. Yep. That's wonderful. So here we are on beautiful Waterdam Farm. Thank you again so much for having us. Anyone who is familiar with the Lady Thistle picture book series will recognize the barn in our background here. Can you just tell us a little bit about life on this farm?
It's a very pleasant place to have our horses, and to have horses on our own property has been just a joy, because up until a few years ago, before having this property and living mostly actually up in Johnstown, we had one horse or two horses that we boarded. That was, of course, a privilege to be able to raise April with horses and be able to ride and do some training. But bringing the horses onto our own property made them more like pets. And of course, the most spectacular thing here that inspired the books is that we had a mare that was retired off the racetrack, a thoroughbred, and she gave birth in our little barn here.
Yes, it's so
and
exciting.
I got to watch it, and then got to watch the baby grow up along with the mother, and then
this is the mama. This is Polly behind us, right? I think she's in the shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Polly is a very, very easy horse to take care of. We always say she's the nice horse in the barn.
Now, what does that mean? What would make a horse like more difficult to care for than others? Just, I mean, I guess they have personalities, just like we humans do.
They have personalities, yes. And, you know, a couple of things. For example, quarter horses, which is what Daphne is, and that's who I ride, they're just generally a quieter breed, and they'll kind of go along with, you know, whatever.
Go with the flow.
Yeah, they're just like, you know, easy. The most difficult thing with Daphne is keeping her with hay. She just is a horse that wants to always have something to munch on, and if she doesn't have it, she's a little more insistent than some others.
Sure.
But then you take a horse like Thistle, who's young. A lot of things catch her attention. You'll be leading her, and all of a sudden something will catch her attention.
So she's a little more easily distracted.
Her more. She's distracted, and you have to be a little more careful. And plus, they get in a little more trouble out in the field. They'll tend to kick down a fence more and escape.
Has she ever escaped?
Oh, yes.
Has she? Oh, my goodness.
But, you know, the thing that is about horses is that horses are very communal. They want to be close to their friends.
Okay.
And so they may not let you catch them easily because they want to eat the grass that's outside of the fence, but they won't go far. They would be afraid to leave the others in their herd.
Interesting.
So.
And that goes kind of for horses in general, not just...
Yes. Yeah, that's a general, they're a herd
that's interesting.
Animal. Yes. So.
Okay. So, do you think we can finally meet Lady Thistle?
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Okay, let's do it.
She's on her way to the barn. As a matter of fact, going to try and walk by us now.
Okay, maybe we'll catch a glimpse of her before she enters the barn.
Thistle's actually the second horse. The horse in front there is her brother, Light.
Hey, we were talking earlier how similar they do look. How do you tell Thistle and Light apart?
Two main characteristics now that Thistle's grown to be the same size as Light is that she has 3 white socks.
Oh, okay.
And
I didn't even notice that.
Light has 2.
Okay.
And there's
a distinguishing characteristic right
and
there.
And
then
so the shape of the marking up her nose has
I remember you saying that was a little bit different.
Hook at the top.
Well, I'm ready, and I'm sure our viewers are ready. So let's head into the barn and meet Polly, Lady Thistle. Daphne will be there as well.
Oh, Daphne's there. Yes.
And Light.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. All right. Well, this immediately looked familiar to me, right? I recognize these stables from the book. I recognize Lady Thistle here. This is so exciting for me because while I've been on a farm, right, maybe to like Trax Farms
That's what she's asking.
For a fall festival type thing. I haven't been on a farm.
Okay.
Like in this way, like actually meeting and being up close and personal with these animals. In comparison to the books, like how old is Lady Thistle right now?
Okay.
And Polly.
Lady Thistle is now 6 years old.
Okay.
So years have passed in real life compared to the books. The books are a bit behind, but they will
But not by much.
They will catch up.
Okay.
Thistle is actually being ridden now by Dr. April.
Okay.
And Thistle's doing really well, actually. We waited until she was about 3 or 3.5, and then she began her training process. And so that process is going to be the topic of the next couple of books, actually.
And that was my final question for you. Can you speak a little about, just maybe give us a sneak preview about the next book?
Sure. Actually, the next couple I will.
Next couple, okay.
So the next book, which is going to be available actually in end of September,
Yay.
is about Thistle's first hoof trim. And that's the farrier coming to the barn. He comes regularly about every 6 weeks, checks all the horses' feet, trims them, replaces shoes as needed. But it was her first visit with him, and also learning to deal with sprays and masks to protect her from flies.
Oh, okay.
So that's a little part of it. Then the next book, Thistle's training begins. And one of the first things that Thistle has to learn is how to get on a trailer. And horses sometimes have a lot of trouble with that. And we decided to take our time and work with her and make it a good experience for her, not a frightening one.
Right.
And then she leaves Waterdam Farm to go to the trainer.
The trainer.
So that he can work with Thistle every day and prepare her for riders in a safe manner.
Okay. Sounds like another exciting installment of
Yes.
this series. So let's talk about when you published your first book, because I'm very interested in the writing process. This is one of my questions that I always ask every author. And I know it varies author to author, but most often, you know, we do hear that it takes quite some time. And you would know this too from your own experience, right?
Yes.
You don't sit down to write a book and have it done in 3 months.
No.
How long typically does it take to get one book complete, start to finish? Can you talk a little bit about that, the writing process?
Yes. I had, when I wrote the first book, drafted it, and found a publisher, which is not an easy task, actually.
No,
but
we'll get to that next.
Yes. The first book took a while, a little longer, and with a lot of work to publish, quite honestly. Each one became easier, of course, but we had to learn how to work together, and then, of course, how for the illustrator to work with us as well. Yes. He had illustrated other books, so he was familiar with that whole process. I was the one who was way behind the curve on all of this.
Yeah.
And
new venture for you.
Yes.
So how did you find your illustrator?
My illustrator, through a mutual friend, actually.
Okay.
My original intention was that I'd heard about this artist and met him by phone, and my original intention was to have him paint kind of a collage of different scenes of Thistle, just, one painting, because he was becoming well known as a painter for Kentucky Derby horses.
Okay.
And she's a thoroughbred, just like the Kentucky Derby horses are. Well, then when I read his resume, I saw he had illustrated books.
Wow.
And I had a young girl doing sketches at the farm, and she's very talented, but they weren't anything that could be used for illustrations.
Okay.
And so then, the more I talked to, his name is Stephen Lester, we decided that we were going to give this a try.
That's great.
Yeah.
So working in collaboration with him was a little bit of a challenge, right? Especially because he's not local. So
and working with the publisher, and me. I had so much to learn from them about how to do this.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So the first book took a while.
Okay.
But then, quite honestly, the second, third, and fourth books, I became very, very, production focused. And all of my time was devoted to, we actually got the 4th book out at the end of 2023. And the first book was published in the fall of 2022.
So that was amazing because usually it takes, would you agree, even a little bit more time than that, from start to finish to publish a book. So that's actually very impressive.
So I realized that I was like hyper-focused. And then the 5th book now, I've relaxed a little more. And for 2024, I'm doing 2. So the 5th book, now I'll start the...
Wonderful. And we can look forward to book number 6.
I hope,
It's exciting.
It is.
So that's the writing process. And we already know the inspiration behind your stories, right? You've been raising horses for 30 years?
30 years. Well, not really raising horses because April, she grew up in Johnstown, actually. And she rode horses there. But she had her own horse when she was about 12 or 13 years old. But we boarded. We did not have a horse farm.
A farm,
yeah. So we boarded, and of course then you do the lessons and you do the 4-H, competitions, and it was just like a really great sport for her to grow up with. And then of course her academics were very important to her as well because it's pretty hard to get into veterinary school.
Yes, I've heard.
So she finished high school, and then when she headed to university was the time we transitioned to Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And then a few years after that, we found the property here and have our horse place now.
That's so exciting. You must be so proud of your daughter.
But 30 years, like I said, of doing horses and not seeing a baby was
that's kind of neat.
The big, the big change that inspired all of this. Yeah.
So that's the inspiration, and that's the writing process. Let's talk about publishing because that is always such. I feel like so many people have an interest in publishing book, myself included. And self-publishing is becoming a more popular thing to do. But you actually were fortunate enough to find a traditional publisher.
Yes.
So I know that can be a challenge. If you could just speak to that process, any difficulties that you had.
Sure. I mean, I had applied to other publishing companies and not been accepted.
I mean, you get thousands upon thousands upon thousands of manuscripts.
They do, and I'm not famous, and I'm not an expert on a given topic. But I had a friend who was in the State College area, and for some reason noticed on some children's books there was a publisher it's Grantham, Pennsylvania, but it's in the eastern part of the state.
Okay.
And I called her. And we got along well on the phone and discussing, and she, I sent her my rough draft, which was very rough. But I had her attention enough to let her know it was going to be a series of books about my daughter, and she really loved the idea.
She was interested then from the get-go?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Well, thank you so much for having me at the library to read and then for doing this as well. It's been a great
it's been our pleasure.
Experience for me
Real
here.
quick, and we will, of course, run this at the bottom of the screen, but please tell our audience how they can purchase your books. Of course, you can find copies of them here at the Bethel Park Public Library. We have her entire collection cataloged, but they are also available.
I have a website, www.LadyThistle. Not
Easy to remember.
Not a whole lot to guess out there. Yeah. And actually, I tell people, even just email me, especially if you're local.
Yes.
I have, books always in inventory.
We were talking before the show that you always have a trunk full of books in your car.
Yes, and I'm at a bunch of local stores as well. I'm in Agway stores.
Okay.
And especially the 84 Agway store is this area.
Okay.
Hallmark stores.
Wonderful.
Castee Village and Donaldson's Crossroads.
That's great.
And Fox Chapel. I don't know if
I've seen your book in Heisler's
And now
Market.
they're going to be down in the Washington Hallmark store.
That's
Washington,
wonderful.
PA. And Erie and Johnstown.
Wonderful. Congratulations again. I will say they make wonderful gifts.
And Heisler's Market. Did you just say that?
I remember
at
seeing it at
Heisler's Market as well.
Yes. They make beautiful gifts as well. So Be sure to check them out. Thank you again, Donna, for joining us.
Thank you. This is so nice.
It's been our pleasure.